We are excited to introduce Dr. Kristina Lahtinen-Aley from Community Care Pediatrics Latham, located at 6 Wellness Way off Route 9 in Latham. Dr. Lahtinen-Aley is a board-certified pediatrician with over 15 plus years of experience serving the families of the Capital District. And she attended medical school at Albany Medical College, and she also completed her internship and residency at Albany Med. Dr. Lahtinen has always had a desire to help others, and she knew at a very young age that she wanted to be a doctor. With an older sister with cystic fibrosis, she witnessed firsthand the care, professionalism, and drive displayed by the many physicians who treated her sister. And those experiences in her youth continue to drive her today as she cares for her patients with compassion and respect. So thank you, Dr. Lahtinen, for educating all of us today. And with that, let's get started. I will turn it over to Dr. Lahtinen-Aley.
Thank you. That was a really nice introduction. So today we are going to be talking about newborn sleep, which is extremely important. Not only what to expect during this time period, but also how you as parents can survive this, because it is a challenging period of time. Next slide, please. So part of that discussion, it's really three parts that we're going to go over. One, what are the sleep patterns of newborns? Because that varies differently from older children, teenagers, and adults. It's a rough period of time. So what to expect during that time. We're going to go over sleep safety, which is critical. How do we keep our babies safe when they're sleeping? Where's the best place for them to sleep? And also we're going to give tips for you as parents on how to maintain your sleep during this period of time. As Alexis pointed out, we're going to have lots of times for review and questions as they come up. Next, please. So as my previous colleague in the first Baby Talk series went over, and I'm going to review it a little bit quickly, we are Community Care Pediatrics Latham. We also go by Latham Pediatrics or Latham Peds. We have been in our new location since spring of 2024. I've been here for many years, and this new building is amazing. It's very beautiful, very helpful for us to take care of our patients. It's centrally located right off Route 7, Route 9, and the Northway. Our office is open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, and Saturday mornings, most importantly for those newborn visits, that first discharge, follow up with your pediatrician for weight checks. But we also do see urgent and sick visits by appointments on Saturday. Our office, we have 6 physicians and 3 pediatric nurse practitioners. The interesting thing about our group is we're all female and we're all moms. So we all have kids of various stages. So we understand what you as parents are going through, and we can help you navigate that. The other beautiful thing about our building, I call it the medical mall, and it truly is that because it's a one-stop shop, not only for your kids, but even for you as adults. So we have a lab, we have imaging, we have a cafe, we have a pharmacy. The pharmacy is awesome because if your kid comes in for a sick visit and needs an antibiotic, you don't have to drive to a different pharmacy. You can all do it all in one stop. Our office also has 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week coverage. So kids often do not follow a schedule when they get sick or when there's a problem or a concern, and we understand that. So anytime you need us, you can call us, which is very convenient. Next slide, please. So getting to the main idea of this talk. So as I mentioned before, sleep patterns of newborns are totally different. And those first couple weeks to a month after the baby's born is rough. So I always describe, babies have been in the womb for 9 months. It's wonderful. I call it Club Mom. It's amazing. It's dark. It's quiet. It's warm. They got a buffet and a swim-up bar. You don't have to worry about eating. It's all in one stop. So a lot of parents describe, a lot of moms describe that during the day, they don't, the baby's moving around, but the minute mom puts her head down on that pillow, it's like a party happens in the belly. And that's true. Their day and night, because they're in darkness all the time, their days and nights are confused. And that is going to continue for several weeks, if not for the first month that babies are born. So it's really challenging. What do we mean by that? That means, newborns will sleep very easily during the day. You'll feed them, you'll change them, they'll fall asleep. And loud noises, banging, bright lights, sounds, people talking, they may sleep through that. Whereas night, you go to put the baby down, they're wide awake. They don't want to fall asleep. So that term we talk about, sleeping like a baby, is not really accurate. They do sleep a lot, usually about 16 to 17 hours a day, but usually in small segments, so 1 or 2 hours at a time. So you think about it, they're up a lot, but they're also sleeping a lot. In the first 1 to 2 weeks, we also say, not only do they not sleep a lot, but often we don't want them to sleep too much. Babies lose about 10% of their birth weight in the first week of life, and they don't understand hunger cues right away. So often we as pediatricians will tell you to wake your baby up to feed them. We don't want them sleeping for too long without eating because we want that birth weight to come back quickly. So not only do they not sleep a lot, but we also tell you not to let them sleep a lot in those first few weeks. And that goes for both breast and bottle feeding in that first 2 weeks. Next slide, please. So typically, as we just talked about, once those infants are back to birth weight, which for most babies is about 2 weeks, some may be a little sooner, some may be a little later, but around 2 weeks, we can then move to what's called on-demand feeding. So that means we can let the baby tell you when they're hungry. I always laugh because once I tell parents, hey, we're on to on-demand feeding, we think that that's going to magically give us more sleep, but it doesn't. Babies will still tend to wake up every 2 to 3 hours to feed. So you're not really getting those super long stretches as a parent. Infants at this stage will also only stay awake for about an hour to an hour and a half around the feed. Typically, we don't want that baby to be up for long periods of time because the longer they are up, the more overtired, the more irritable they can be. So sleep is super important, but they're not going to be up for a long period of time either. As infants age, their need for sleep will decrease, luckily. But they'll also be able to switch that day and night cycle. And that usually happens between the 2 to 4 week period of time, meaning that they're going to be up a little bit more in the daytime and then sleep a little bit better at night. Thank goodness. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, those sleep patterns will change. So by 2 months, most infants will be eating every 2 to 3 hours during the day, but then you're going to get those longer stretches, 4 to 5, if not more hours at night without needing to wake up to eat, which is thankful. That a period of time is very short, but also very difficult. By 4 months, a more routine sleep schedule emerges. So, for example, most babies will say take their last feeding around 8 to 10 p.m. They'll get one long stretch of sleep, can vary between 4 to 6 hours, and then get up to feed every 2 to 3 hours after that. Nap times, typically you won't see those emerge till around 4 months. True nap schedule where you say, oh, this is my baby's morning nap, or they're going to go down for their afternoon nap around noon. Those time naps that you can plan your day out really are not going to really occur till about 6 months. Prior to that, it's very variable. They can cat nap throughout the day, but not at consistent times as a 6-month-old would. One of the other questions that gets brought up is, when will my baby not need to feed in the middle of the night? It is normal for babies to need to feed at least once in the middle of the night up until 9 months of age. So we all know that person who said, oh, well, my baby was sleeping through the night by 2 months or 4 months. And we start to panic that, why isn't my baby doing that? That's actually not that common. Most babies will still need one feeding per night up until 9 months of age. So don't panic. We all know those people who said, well, my baby did this or my baby did that. Don't worry about it. That's what we're here as pediatricians to walk you through too. Next slide. So sleep training and infant crying. It's a common thing when we're talking about sleep. So sleep training, or what you might have heard about Ferber methods or crying it out methods, really should not be started prior to 4 months. Infants are really learning to trust their caregivers and develop a critical bond in those first couple weeks to months. So what babies want to know is, if I cry or I'm upset, somebody's there to tend to me. And if we disrupt that with crying out methods, it can really disrupt that bonding period of time, and it's not going to help babies sleep any better. So in those periods of time, though, a lot of people say, well, how long can I let my baby cry as a newborn? Sometimes they're going to need to cry, and it's okay for up to 5 minutes for them to cry. Sometimes it's because you need a break. Maybe you just need to go to the bathroom or get a drink. Don't panic. Long periods of time of crying, most parents can't even tolerate a couple minutes of their infant crying, but up to 5 minutes is absolutely okay. There are various methods when we get to that stage about how to do sleep training. Every method will work, but what's going to work for you and your family can be variable from family to family, from baby to baby. So that's where your pediatrician can be super helpful about working with you and what strategies may be better for you. What can you handle as a parent? Because some of it is a comfort level, but we can work through that with you when that time comes. It's important, and part of the reason why I chose to do this topic of sleep is it's important to prioritize sleep. Sleep is fundamental to our health and our growth and our development. So starting a good sleep habit when they're infants and learning to prioritize sleep, and think of it just like we do anything with nutrition, development, sleep is super critical. So developing those sleep habits early on in life will help take them through all stages and keep them healthy even as an adult. Next slide. So I went through that rather quickly. Any questions up to this point about what we've talked about with, the normal sleep patterns of a newborn?
I don't see anything in the Q&A just yet.
Okay.
So I think we can proceed.
Okay. Next slide. So now that we've talked about the newborn sleep habits, we're now going to talk about safety. And one of the biggest topics that we're going to talk about is SIDS. You're going to hear a lot about this, not only just reading through literature about infants, but also in the newborn nursery, they will talk to you at length about this. And one of the biggest things that we talk about is back to sleep. So we're going to talk about many times of how important that is. But for those of you who don't know what SIDS are, SIDS is the unexplained death of an otherwise healthy infant that's less than a year old. So what do we mean by an otherwise healthy infant? That means an infant that hasn't had any abnormalities on a prenatal ultrasound, that hasn't had any defects that we see once the baby's born, nothing that on the outside indicates that the baby's unhealthy. And we're still trying to figure out why this happens. So many years ago, or you might have heard people call this crib death. Ironically, it doesn't usually happen when babies are in a crib. And we're going to get to that, like the reasons why we say to put a baby down in a crib and what is appropriate for a crib. But most of the time, it's not happening in a crib. Although we don't know the exact reason. Most of the theories kind of go back to a possible defect in the brain that regulates our breathing when we're sleeping. So it looks at oxygen levels, it looks at the rate of respiratory, and also like when our respiratory rate goes down too low or oxygen levels go down too low, it will cause us to sort of wake up and breathe a little bit better. So that comes back to why we talk about back to sleep. So as many aunts, uncles, grandparents will say, oh, you slept so much better when you were on your belly. That's true, but not safe. So when you are sleeping on your belly as a newborn, you will sleep soundly, almost too soundly. So we think that kind of impacts that regulatory mechanism that tells a baby your oxygen level is getting too low, you're not breathing enough. So by them sleeping on their stomach, it increases that risk of that happening. By sleeping on your back, you're not going to sleep as soundly. You're still going to sleep though, but you're going to be able to regulate those breathing cues and make sure that your oxygen levels are staying at their right amount. Other things that can increase the risk of SIDS. So low birth weight, if your baby was born on the smaller side. Prematurity, if they were born too early. If you are part of multiples, twins, triplets, quads, and also smoking exposure in the home. So if now's a great time, if you or a family member smoke, now's a great time to quit, because even if you smoke outside, it still comes in on your clothing and it does increase that risk of SIDS. Next slide. So other things that can increase the risk of SIDS include co-sleeping. So that doesn't include room sharing, which I'm going to cover in a later slide, but co-sleeping is, having the baby in your bed with you. It's tempting when you're really tired and it's the middle of the night and your baby's finally asleep, but co-sleeping is a huge risk factor. Not only when parents are really tired, because I hate to say it, we have seen cases where parents, because they're so exhausted, have rolled over onto their infant, or the infant has rolled off the bed, or the infant's gotten trapped or tangled up in the sheets or comforters or blankets on an adult bed. So co-sleeping is definitely a risk factor. We absolutely advise to not do that. Sleeping with blankets, pillows, soft bedding, or bumpers. All of these have the same effect, meaning that it could impact the baby when they're sleeping. So if it gets too cushy or the sides of those blankets or pillows come up, or bumpers, babies will turn their head. And if they turn their head and they get pinned up against that surface and they can't breathe, that's going to increase that risk of SIDS. So anything soft, fluffy, big, we really don't want it in the crib or bassinet with them. Sleeping with your head elevated or an incline, you may see this in the nursery, and a lot of parents ask why in the nursery. Well, one, they're being monitored very closely, but we don't recommend you do this at home. Again, babies do move when they sleep, so it's too easy for them to slide down that incline and get kind of crumpled up and not be in a great position to protect that airway. Sleeping in an armchair. Again, middle of the night feedings, you're in a recliner or an armchair with your baby and you're tired. Try your best. Put the baby down. Do not sleep with them in an armchair. It's too easy for them to fall out. It's too easy for them to kind of sink in and get caught in between arms or pillows. I also don't recommend, you will find lots of like sleep nests or rock and play sleepers. Those, again, they're very cushy and warm and really are not conducive for keeping that airway and that breathing mechanism intact for newborns. Sofa is another like a common one. It's flat and it's right there, and maybe you're going to quickly go somewhere or do something and the baby's on a sofa. Again, babies can move. They do move when they sleep, so we don't recommend those. They can get caught in between cushions, pillows. It's also typically softer and, again, won't be a safe environment for the baby. The other big thing is overheating. So typically most SIDS deaths were also associated with overheating, meaning they had big fluffy blankets on or the temperature was too high. Yes, in a newborn nursery, your baby will have a bonnet or a hat on. They may have, mittens or gloves. At home, the question I get asked a lot is, how warm do I keep my house? Do I have to crank up the temperature for this baby? Please don't. Just a normal temperature, 68 to 72 degrees is all you need. And my rule of thumb for most parents is one more thin layer than what you're comfortable wearing is what you need to put on your baby. So, for instance, it's a hot summer day. If I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts and I'm sweating, my newborn probably only needs a onesie and a thin receiving blanket. You don't want to over bundle them. It's actually okay for them to be a little on the cooler side. Next slide. So we talked about all the things that increase the risk of SIDS, but let's talk about the things that decrease this. So back to sleep, the number one, as we talked about, airway, protecting that breathing mechanism. So room sharing, not co-sleeping. So what do I mean by that? So not in your bed, but in your room. So in a safe crib or bassinet next to your bed or in your room with you, that decreases the risk of SIDS by up to 50%. Breastfeeding, even if it's only for a month or two, can decrease the risk by 50% as well. The other thing would be pacifiers. So not, a lot of times pacifiers get a bad rap in terms of as we're learning to nurse, but pacifiers can be useful as babies are falling asleep to also decrease the risk of SIDS. So often sucking is a natural newborn reflex that they have. If they're sucking on a pacifier as they fall asleep, that can decrease the risk. Once the pacifier falls out, you don't have to put the pacifier back in always, but those can decrease the risk. The newer question I get asked more is about these heart monitors or home monitors that you can now purchase. An example would be like the Owlet suck. So in theory, those are great, but in actual practice, they're not beneficial. They are not recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we in our group don't recommend them either, because there hasn't really been shown a proven benefit to them. In theory, it's like, great, it's going to monitor my baby's heart rate and their oxygen rate, and they're going to alert me when something goes off. The problem is they tend to alert you a lot. So if you're an overtired, overstressed parent and that alarm goes off, parental anxiety goes through the roof, and it can make it really challenging for parents to even sleep at night, and you guys need your sleep. So oftentimes it'll go off because the baby, moved, or it slipped off the foot, or the baby kicked, or the baby even hiccuped, burped, coughed, whatever. That alarm could go off and really panic parents. On the alternative end of that is that it also can give us a false sense of security. So maybe instead of following the other rules of sleep safety and say we do like a rock and play sleeper, but I have my Owlet on, so I don't need to worry about it's going to let me know if anything's wrong. That really gives us that false sense of security, and really just following the basics of sleep safety is going to be enough. Next slide. So tummy time. So everybody asks, well, if I'm always on my back to sleep, can we do tummy time? And absolutely the answer is yes. But do it when the baby's awake. It's a great time to bond with your baby. Oftentimes putting your baby on your chest and letting them be on their tummy like that is a great way to bond with your baby. But doing it when they're awake and when you're awake is crucial. Most babies aren't going to tolerate it for a long period of time. You don't have to get a certain amount in. Any amount is helpful to develop good abdominal muscles and for them to work on their strength. So even starting off with like 3 to 5 minutes at a time, and then increase it as your baby tolerates. But again, do it when you can monitor your baby, when you are awake, and when the baby is awake. Next slide. Oh, I heard back to sleep causes flat heads. It's a common question. And yes, it may, but it's typically very mild. But there's lots of tips we as pediatricians come up with to help you avoid those flat heads. Like I said, it's very mild. Most infant skulls are very malleable, meaning they're going to shape and continue to shape for months. So there's tips we can do to keep that skull more rounded and avoid excessive flattening. And we will monitor that with each visit that we see your baby. So one of the quick tips is just when you hold your baby. So whether you're nursing or bottle feeding, not always holding him in the same way. That avoids that same pressure point on the back of the head. So alternating how you hold your baby when you feed him is important. The other important thing is just when you put them down to sleep. So most babies are going to turn towards, they're not going to want to look at a wall. They're going to want to look over towards you. If you're room sharing and your bassinet is right next to your bed, babies smell mom and they're like, oh, I know that smell. And they're going to turn towards mom. So if we alternate how we put them down next to your bed, it's going to alternate which way they look each night, which again is going to take some of the pressure off the back of the head and keep it more rounded so you can avoid that flat skull. Next slide. So this is also a common thing. My infant spits up. I don't want them to choke. You can still put them on their back to sleep. So even if your baby has reflux or spits up, their back is still the safest option. So they will not choke on their spit up when they're put on their back. So we know this not only from multiple long-term studies, but just time. Babies protect their airway. And what we mean by that is they're going to turn their head when they spit up. They're going to cough and sputter. They will not aspirate on spit up. That has not been proven to be a risk for SIDS at all. So it also has to go back to the anatomy of the baby's airway. So when they're on their back to sleep, their airway is actually opened better and more protected when they're on their back than if they were on their belly. Being on their belly actually increases that risk of aspiration or choking. A lot of people also ask, does reflux get worse or does digestion get worse when they're on their back? And no, that does not affect either of those things. So it doesn't increase their spitting up. It doesn't help it. And it is actually safer for them to still be on their back. Next slide. So swaddling, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier in passing, but swaddling, again, is something super critical to baby sleep. It's also a great way to kind of soothe them, and also a good way to keep them, comfortable when they're on their back to sleep. So just like the baby in this picture who's swaddled in a nice flat crib, which we'll get to later, swaddling is super helpful. And you'll notice it in the newborn nursery, or just in general when you've been around babies or infants. It really helps them from waking themselves up. So there is a normal newborn reflex called the Moro reflex. And what that happens is when babies are startled, when they hear a loud sound or something goes off, their arms tend to flail out. So with that, when those arms flail out, they wake up. So to kind of protect against that, you can swaddle your baby. We typically recommend you use a thin blanket. So not these big quilts, fluffy things. Those are too big. And again, you don't want anything to go above the mouth or their nose when they're breathing. We also don't want them to get overheated, as we talked about. You can use pre-made ones, like the one in this picture that this newborn is wearing, that have Velcro. There's lots of sleep sacks, Halo sleep sacks. You can use any of those. What we don't want is the new weighted options, because again, those are too heavy and don't help that baby breathe comfortably. I know we've heard about weighted blankets for older kids and adults, but for newborns and infants, we do not recommend those weighted options. As we talked about, again, overheating. So when you're swaddling, you don't need to have multiple layers on underneath. Again, one more thin layer than what you're comfortable wearing. And the big thing with swaddling is really when you swaddle your infant, you want those legs and hips to be freely mobile. If they're not, it can affect the development of the hips and cause issues. So we really want those legs to be able to kick and move as much as possible. And I think if we go to the next slide, this gives you a nice little diagram. It's not the greatest, but it'll work, about how to swaddle. So everybody does ask, do you swaddle with the baby's hands up by their face, or do you swaddle with their arms down? Both are reasonable options, and every baby is a little different. Some babies prefer their hands up by their face because that's what they're used to in utero. Some don't because they wake themselves up too easily. So sometimes swaddling with the hands down by their side is beneficial. So you really put your baby in the middle. You're going to wrap that one side around and tuck it under tightly, but not too tight. You're going to bring that middle section up and then wrap that last section over. Again, you want those legs to be freely mobile. You want them to be able to kick and move. The hands, again, you want them to be a little bit tighter to the chest, but not too tight. So when you're swaddling, you should be able to fit 2 to 3 fingers between the swaddle blanket and the baby's chest, just so that they have plenty of room. Next slide. So we talked about swaddling. We talked about back to sleep. Next thing we're going to talk about are cribs. So cribs have gone through kind of many different transitions, and there's always something new and amazing with a crib. But the biggest thing that we don't recommend with cribs anymore are what's called drop side rails. They were very popular for long periods of time because it made getting to your baby kind of easier, getting them in and out easier, but they were a big safety issue, and since 2011 are no longer recommended. What we say in terms of a crib, like anything that's flat and firm is going to be good. So whether that's a crib, a bassinet, a portable crib, or even play yards like a pack and play, those are flat surfaces. Those are great. And you can use those definitely when you're room sharing. Those are appropriate. We've heard of places like Finland. They give out newborn boxes for anybody who's expecting, and it has a lot of things in it, but it comes in a box that often is used as that newborn's first place to sleep. So again, it doesn't have to be super fancy, but what we do want it to be is flat, firm, and bare. So as we talk about, no bumpers, no positioners, no big fluffy blankets, because again, those are going to be risk factors to affect the baby's breathing. If the baby gets kind of rolls over or gets stuck up against them, it's hard for them to move away from it, even if they're struggling to breathe. Baby positioners, those are talked about a lot. And, well, this is going to keep your baby from rolling over or keep them on their back. Again, they're not safe because babies will move and they'll tend to turn their head from side to side and wiggle. And we wouldn't want them to get stuck up against a positioner again and have difficulty breathing. So flat, firm, and bare is the way to go. Just like the picture of this newborn, again, is swaddled, but you can see that that mattress is flat. There's nothing else there. There's no bumpers. Some people talk about these mesh bumpers because they're afraid that, their newborn or older infant's going to put their arm or leg out and it could get stuck. Those are okay, but we recommend them on the outside. One, because they're mesh, so they're not going to impact breathing. But again, they're not necessary. And again, I wouldn't recommend those in that newborn period of time. One way to check to make sure your crib is safe, especially if you get like a hand-me-down or a family heirloom of something like that, you can check to make sure that it meets safety requirements. You can also check to make sure if there's any recalls on that said crib. And that is available at the CPSC or Consumer Product Safety Commission website. And this actually has a great thing for even car seats, swings, rockers, any infant paraphernalia you may have. It's a great website that you can go to, but especially for your crib, you can make sure that there's no product safety recalls or safety concerns about that. Next slide. So what about other places to sleep? So we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but something flat and bare is the best. There's a lot of baby merchandise out there you can buy, but a lot of it is not recommended and not safe. So examples would be like a rock and play sleeper or those baby nests. Those, again, they're too cushy, too warm, and they're really not safe. Babies can fall out of them if you're not paying attention, and they're just not a great place to put your baby down. Nursing pillows or boppy pillows, that has become a huge issue where, the babies, it's okay when you're nursing and using those to position the baby, but when your baby's ready to go to sleep, don't put them on that boppy pillow. You want to put them down on a flat place. They fall down, they get positioned wrongly. Again, it can affect their airway, which we want to avoid. Sleeping in rockers or swings, also not beneficial. Sometimes those can be used to soothe the baby a little bit, to kind of relax them, but not for prolonged use, and definitely not unless they're being supervised 100%. It is a place where they can calm the baby, but it's not a place to put them down for a nap or to sleep for long periods of time. Your baby will fall asleep in a car seat. Sometimes you need to take them for a ride to calm them down. And it's okay if they fall asleep for short periods of time while you're watching them in a car seat, but to have them there for overnight or for prolonged sleeping, again, not safe. Contact napping and carriers. Please, a lot of newborns are going to need to contact nap. You're going to need to hold them for them to fall asleep. They want to be close. They want to feel that warmth, that heartbeat. Those are super helpful. But you don't want to do that when you're tired. So if you're holding your baby and you're starting to feel really wiped out, the best place for your baby is down in a crib bassinet. Carriers are great because if you just want to hold your baby and do some of that contact napping, those are great. Again, though, never fall asleep with your baby in your carrier on your body. And you do want to make sure that your baby meets the height and weight requirements for that carrier. If they're too big or too small, it can be unsafe for those as well. Questions?
We have a bunch of great questions for this section.
Okay.
So let me go through some of them, all of them.
Okay.
Is it true having good air circulation, such as a fan in the room the baby sleeps, can reduce the chance of SIDS?
Yeah, I mean, those can be useful, again, because it keeps the baby from getting overheated. It also doesn't allow that, it allows for air circulation. So that sometimes doesn't allow you to sleep as deeply. But again, they can be useful. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, let me just scroll to the bottom here.
No, that's okay.
What if my baby keeps rolling over on their tummy to sleep during the night?
So most newborns may turn to their side, but it's really uncommon for them to turn over to their belly. Older infants, older children, usually by the time they figure out how to roll over by 4 to 6 months, if they roll over both ways on their own, they will sleep okay on their belly. But it's just really in this newborn period of time. If they roll to their side, you don't like, if they're still, on a flat surface, it's okay. But most newborns are not going to roll all the way over to their tummy. And if they do, we tell you to turn them back on their back.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered that question.
Sounds like it's me. How many weeks old should you start tummy time?
So you can start it from day one. So sometimes even when you're holding your newborn, right after birth, almost you're doing tummy time on your chest. So those are times, if you're just kind of reclined with your baby and holding them, that is considered tummy time. So Dr. Donnelly may have talked about the umbilical cord is going to take a while to fall off, but that doesn't affect you putting your baby on the belly. So even right from the beginning, you can start tummy time.
Thank you. Is it okay to swaddle for naps and nighttime, or should I do only one?
Oh, no, you can do both. Absolutely. In that first couple weeks, if not for a while, your baby may love to be swaddled because it just helps them kind of soothe themselves and kind of, not, startle themselves awake. So you can use it for both nap and bedtime.
Okay, I think you covered this, but I'm going to ask again just to kind of reiterate.
Sure.
Are swings, bouncers, or inclined seats safe for naps?
So really, I would say don't get in the habit even for naps, because it's really one of those, for them to initially soothe themselves to sleep is okay. But once they fall asleep, I say you really should move them, because too often we'll say, oh, the baby's sleeping, and I may get up and I may walk away and I may get sidetracked for something else, and we're not paying attention to them. I think, and again, you do want to be careful of blanket statements of all or never, but it's really the less you get used to relying on those, and the more the baby gets used to being put down on a flat surface, a safe surface, the more they're going to learn those sleep cues, and the more they're going to learn to self-soothe themselves to sleep and not rely on a swing or a rocker to fall asleep. So it's sort of a twofold purpose. One, it's teaching a baby how to sleep in the normal sleep place, but also to avoid some of those risk factors if we get sidetracked or something happens when we're not watching. So I say you can use them to help soothe, but I really try to avoid those for like long naps, and definitely not overnight. Hopefully that made sense.
Yes. There was a similar question about car seats, so I'm assuming it applies to that too. What about, I'm going to add to this question though, what about if you're going on a road trip with a car seat, and what's an appropriate duration of time to let a baby be in that car seat?
Very popular question. And I'm going to be honest, most of the time I tell parents, well, if you can, you have more than 2 adults in the car with you. So one can be in the back seat with the newborn in that car seat, kind of watching them, and one's doing the driving, and you can kind of switch. It's really just to keep your eyes on that baby, because things can happen in a car seat. Yes, they're safe. Yes, they're good for travel. But for prolonged periods of time, you want to have eyes on that baby. So various car rides, it depends on how long you're going. Most infants will do fine if you're watching them in a car seat for 1 to 2 hours at a clip. Because remember, those newborns are going to need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So some of it depends on eating. But I usually like an adult being there with eyes on that infant if possible. If not, you really would want to limit that period of time in that car seat. And if the baby, say you go on that trip, or the baby was super colicky and they needed that car ride to fall asleep, and you came in the house, as long as your eyes are on that infant, you can let them sleep for another 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's fine. But more than that, I would say, okay, we got to take the baby out. We got to put them down. Because sometimes it's just human nature to get distracted by something else. And it's when we're distracted that things can happen.
Thank you. One more question on this section. How important is the saying, sleep when baby sleeps, in the first couple of weeks at home?
I'm going to get to that in a couple of minutes, but it is huge. So that's like the next section or soon to be section, which are tips for parent survival. It's super critical for us to sleep when the baby is sleeping, especially in those first couple weeks. It's stressful. It's this whole new process of this new young life, and they don't tell you what's wrong, and we don't know what they need. And it's a lot of wanting parents to do absolutely all the perfect things. It's a lot of stress and a lot of just mental stamina that you need. And so if you're overtired and you're not getting sleep, it's going to be hard to manage that. So we're going to definitely talk about why that's important, but it is critical to sleep when your baby's sleeping.
Okay, I think we can get into that section now. Good to go.
Okay, so that's a perfect leeway. Thanks, whoever asked that. So how do I survive? I mean, this sounds super overwhelming. And having lived through it, I have 3 kids, including twin boys. It's hard. It's really hard. And I always say, too, to parents, human race would probably have died out a long time ago if we remembered how hard this period of time is, because we wouldn't want to do it again. But luckily, we forget. And then you have this beautiful baby who then becomes this wonderful toddler, then, older child. So we will forget this period of time, but how do you get through it at that moment? It's exhausting. It's overwhelming, especially for moms who have just delivered. Your body's tired. Your hormones are all over. So it's really imperative to take each moment, even each feeding, each day, each hour at a time. It's very quick for us to, let's say you're nursing and I had a bad nursing session. It's hard not to hit that panic button and say, oh my God, it's awful. Every second is going to be different. So just taking each moment as it comes, you will get through it. The other really important part is just to ask for help. Ask a trusted family member or a friend who's had kids. They're all going to remember this and they're going to understand you need your help. So just taking a couple hours, even if you're nursing or if you're bottle feeding, I just need just a couple minutes or even a couple hours. Grandparents, family members, they love to hold babies. They'll hold it forever. Let them hold the baby and rest. And you go up and just, even if you could lay down for an hour or two, that's going to help you. Some find it very difficult to take naps during the day, and I can understand that. But don't be tempted to say, oh, the baby's asleep. I can go clean the kitchen or I can go do laundry. You have friends to do that. Phone a friend for meals, cleaning your house or doing the laundry for you. Let them do that part. Nobody's looking at your house in the first couple weeks. So ask for help. Take shifts with your partner. So depending, even if you are breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, you can take that 2 to 3 hour period of time or 1 to 2 hour period of time and kind of switch off. So use each other. You're going to need it, and you're both going to need sleep. It's not just one or the other. I also say listen to your body. A lot of times we, as parents, will, try to do more and more for, less and less. So what I mean by that is we can say, well, I'm tired, but I'm okay. I'll keep going just because I feel like my baby needs me. That is true, but your baby needs you to be healthy and your baby needs you to be well rested. So making sure you do prioritize what you need, including eating and drinking. Sometimes, like moms, sometimes we can just be totally forgetful and we say, oh, I've got a headache or whatever. It's because you haven't eaten or had anything to drink all day. You need to fuel your body, and not only with sleep. So don't ignore those signs, because you're not going to do your baby any good if you fall behind on those things. And as we talked about, your hormones as a mom are going to be all over the place after delivery. And postpartum depression and things of being overwhelmed and sad, we want to know that. Please reach out. Don't be ashamed to ask for help or to say, you know what, I am super at my limit or I'm super overwhelmed. We can help with that and we can get you through that. Don't feel ashamed, because that's doing the right thing for you and your baby. So we as pediatricians, we're going to ask a lot about that on all of those follow-up visits. How are you guys doing? Are you getting sleep? Because it's important for parents to take care of themselves so that they then can take care of their infant better. Next slide. So the other thing, when does it get too much? Well, probably all the time, but there can be breaking points where you might just want to lose it. And that's normal too. So especially when we get to what I call those witching hours of the day, where infants are crying and they're inconsolable, and you've literally tried everything. You've tried changing their diaper, you've tried feeding them, you've tried holding them, you've tried walking around the house. You don't know what to do, and your baby is just not cooperating. It happens a lot. So you may reach that breaking point where you're super frustrated, and it definitely gets worse when you're overtired. That definitely makes it all worse. So what I say is, when you're reaching those moments, stop. Put your baby down and take a deep breath. It is okay, as we talked about, for your baby to cry for a couple minutes. What we don't want, which again is going to get covered in the newborn nursery as well, is we hear horror stories about shaken baby, or to the point where babies are abused or something happens out of frustration and out of fatigue and out of just breaking points of parents. It can happen, and it's scary. So what we say is just stop, take a deep breath, put your baby down in a safe spot. Sometimes I even say, put in some music, go take a walk outside for 5 minutes, call a friend, call somebody to help. That's going to help kind of break that moment. You're going to be able to take a deep breath, and then you're going to be able to go back and handle that situation better. So don't feel ashamed by those. Please ask us for help, or ask a friend or a trusted family member. That's going to not only help you, but also help your baby. Next slide. So the other thing, I know we've covered a lot. There's always going to be well-meaning people, social media sites. There's a lot of information that's very overwhelming. There is no way that I could cover all of newborn sleep in one session. So a lot of people ask, where can I go for great advice? And like I said, if you're on a social media site like Google, for instance, it's all over the board, and it can make you feel you're doing nothing right, or everything is said in two, like one person will say this and then somebody says the exact opposite. How can I figure that out? So I do have a couple great sites for sleep. Healthychildren.org, I'll be honest, is a one-stop shop for everything, not just sleep related, but nutrition, pooping and peeing questions, development questions, like how do I play with my newborn, or what kind of development should I be seeing? This is a one-stop shop for anything kids. It's put out by American Academy of Pediatrics, and I mean, it covers everything. So if you have questions, that's a great first step. Craig Canapari is a physician who works on sleep. He has a book called It's Never Too Late to Sleep Train. He also has a great Facebook page, and it covers all aspects of sleep from the newborn period of time right up until teenage to adulthood. A book that I used for my kids, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. As we know as adults, when we don't sleep well, we're cranky the next day. So kids are exactly the same. So focusing on those sleep habits early can help us long term. And again, these books, you don't have to use all the things. You can kind of pick and choose what works for you and your family. My Friend the Pediatrician is also a great Facebook page. Again, covers lots of different topics about children, newborns, teens. So that also has a great resource for you. Soon to come on our own Facebook page or our own webpage is going to be a list of social media sites that we've picked out that are reasonable, have great advice, and can steer you on the right path if you're really looking for more of a social media or quick go-to. We will have that list coming out shortly, which will be great. Next slide. So speaking of our website, this is our website right here for our Latham Peds. On here, you can find all the provider biographies. So you can learn about all the 6 providers and 3 nurse practitioners, kind of where we started, why we went into this field, kind of pick out, ooh, this person sounds kind of cool. Maybe I want to come see them. So that will have that information there. It goes over office policies. There's even a photo tour of our new office, which is beautiful. There's also forms for registration and also insurance plans. And like I said, there's also some other great sites and resources we'll have coming soon. Next slide. So If you are new here, if you're expecting and you say, you know, I think I might want to join your team, how do I do that? Once the infant's born or when you're getting ready for discharge from the hospital will let you know when they want your baby to be seen for that first appointment. So once you know that, you can give our office a call. Our number's right there. We can schedule that whenever you need it. So as we mentioned before, even if it's on a Saturday, we can get you in to do that first newborn visit. Next slide. So I've been happy to do this talk. I know Dr. Daimling did the previous one, and I just wanted to go over the upcoming talks that are coming. So next newborn talk is next Sunday. The baby is here, what now? And Dr. Daimling, I believe, is doing that one. But we also have episode 4 and episode 5 coming up, called The Pediatrician and Care for Premature and Late Preterm Babies. Those are going to be great talks, so I highly recommend joining those when the time comes. And if you want to register, that link is down below. Next slide. So thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have other questions, you can email the team, contact us at Latham Pediatrics. But I was really happy to join you all this evening.